Imagine having, like, a secret sense, a kind of superpower of perception,
Mm-hmm.
allowing you to maybe peek behind the curtain of reality,
Mm-hmm.
maybe even see something, well, truly extraordinary,
Yeah.
like extraterrestrial beings, or maybe their crafts.
Exactly. And that's the really tantalizing idea we're going to dive into today.
Okay.
This deep dive, we're aiming to unpack this whole concept of remote viewing, figure out where it comes from,
Right.
and really explore these claims, sometimes quite compelling claims, about using it to perceive life, well, beyond Earth.
Okay.
And we'll be using the discussion from that podcast episode, Remote Viewing and Extraterrestrial Perception. It was on Beyond the Veil.
Ah, yes. I remember that one.
Yeah, trying to pull out the core stuff from their conversation.
So our mission then, for you listening, is basically to sift through all that and figure out what it really tells us about the potential.
Mm-hmm.
And let's be honest, the challenges too, of using this remote viewing to understand anything about extraterrestrials.
Definitely challenges.
Okay, so first things first. For anyone new to this, what is remote viewing? Like, fundamentally.
Okay, simply put, remote viewing is it's an attempt to gain information about a target.
A target.
Yeah, it could be anything, a place, an object, maybe even a person that's, far away or hidden somehow from your normal senses.
Okay.
The core idea is using what people often call ESP, extrasensory perception,
All right,
to sort of see or experience details about whatever this target is.
And this isn't like some brand new idea someone just cooked up, is it? There's actually a history here.
Oh, absolutely. A history that might surprise some people, actually. The origins, like the formal practice of it, that really traces back to the 1970s.
The 70s, really?
Yeah. During the Cold War, the U.S. government got very interested in exploring unconventional ways to gather intelligence.
Makes sense. Cold War context.
Right. So this led to various projects, but the most famous one was probably Project Stargate.
Stargate. Okay, now that sounds like a movie. Government-funded psychic research.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Seriously. The basic goal was to find out if trained people could reliably get information that you just couldn't get normally.
So like spy stuff.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah.
Could they pinpoint enemy locations, understand secret activities, maybe even get a sense of future events? It was all about seeking a strategic edge.
Wild. But here's where it gets maybe even more interesting. Because that Beyond the Veil discussion we mentioned, they talk about how remote viewers often describe the experience, right? It's not just like seeing with your eyes closed.
That's a really key point. Yeah. Many people who practice this, they report feeling like they're tapping into something bigger than just their own mind.
Bigger. How so?
They often use phrases like universal consciousness or maybe a collective unconscious, something that suggests this interconnectedness.
Universal consciousness. Okay, I've heard that term before in different contexts.
Yeah.
So how do people who believe in remote viewing think this connection works? Like, how do you tap in?
Well, the underlying idea, and this isn't scientifically proven, but the idea suggests there's this fundamental connection between all minds. Or maybe like a shared field of information that's just part of reality.
Like an information field.
Sort of, yeah. And remote viewing, from that perspective, is like a technique to tune into that field, to access information that isn't limited by, space or time.
Okay, so like plugging your individual mind into a bigger network.
That's a good analogy, yeah. A larger network of awareness.
All right, so if we follow that logic, if viewers believe they can tap into this universal field, that brings us right back to our main question. Could this ability actually give us real insights into extraterrestrial life? The Beyond the Veil guys seem to think it was possible.
They definitely explored it. And this is where things get, well, very speculative, but also incredibly fascinating.
Okay.
There are individuals, people who claim they're skilled remote viewers who have reported perceiving, well, what they interpret as ET beings.
Beings, like aliens.
Yeah. Beings, spacecraft, even descriptions of otherworldly places.
Wow. Okay, that's a huge claim. It really sparks the imagination, doesn't it? Thinking about human potential expanding like that.
It really does.
But okay, let's pull back for a second. What does the scientific community make of all this? They usually want hard data, right?
Absolutely. And generally speaking, the scientific community is still very skeptical about remote viewing.
Skeptical's putting it mildly sometimes.
Often, yeah. It's frequently classified as pseudoscience. And the main reason is just the lack of consistent replicable evidence.
Right.
Evidence gathered under really strict, controlled lab conditions.
That replicability thing,
Yeah.
that always seems to be the sticking point with phenomena like this. Anecdotes are one thing, but doing it consistently in a lab.
That's precisely the issue. It's incredibly difficult to design experiments that can truly prove or disprove it, especially when you're dealing with subjective experiences.
In non-physical targets, right? How do you verify that?
Exactly. Now, there have been some studies over the decades that showed results that were, let's say, statistically anomalous.
Anomalous.
Meaning better than chance would predict, suggesting maybe there's something to it, but the findings just haven't been strong enough or consistent enough to convince the mainstream scientific world.
So it's kind of stuck in this gray area between personal claims and the need for objective proof.
Very much so.
But let's just, for argument's sake, entertain the possibility. Let's say there is something real to remote viewing, even if we don't get how it works. What kind of bigger, maybe philosophical questions does that raise about reality itself?
Oh, it raises huge questions. It really forces us to look at some basic assumptions we make.
Like what?
Like, if our minds can somehow access information beyond our physical senses, what does that actually say about consciousness, about its connection to the physical world?
Yeah.
It fundamentally challenges the idea that our five senses are the only way we can know anything about reality.
So it suggests there might be more going on than what we can, see, hear, touch. That beyond the veil discussion definitely went there.
Exactly. It kind of opens the possibility of, well, other dimensions maybe, or layers to reality that we just aren't normally aware of. Realms that operate perhaps outside our standard scientific models and makes you question the limits of what we think we know.
And all of this, it loops back to that really deep human question, doesn't it? The one we've been asking forever. Are we alone?
It absolutely does. Because the really tantalizing prospect here is, what if remote viewing is real?
Yeah.
It could potentially be a completely different way to investigate that very question. Maybe even discover life or intelligence out there that our telescopes and probes just can't detect.
Wow. The implications of that. I mean, just imagine if we could somehow gain understanding of other civilizations, not through radio signals, but through consciousness.
What's mind-boggling to think about.
How would that change?
Yeah.
Everything. Our view of life, of who we are, our place in the cosmos.
It would be completely revolutionary. I mean, it would force us to rethink biology, physics, certainly our philosophical ideas, maybe even spiritual beliefs.
Yeah.
It would fundamentally shift our perspective on our own significance, in the grand scheme of things.
So, okay, as we wrap up this deep dive then, we've covered quite a bit. We looked at the origins, the government projects like Stargate.
The 70s.
Explored this idea of tapping into a universal consciousness, maybe.
Like bigger connection.
And then we got into those really extraordinary claims about seeing ETs, drawing from that beyond the veil discussion.
Yeah.
We also had to touch on the scientific skepticism, the lack of hard proof.
Very important context.
And these profound philosophical questions that bubble up if you even consider these possibilities.
Yeah, at the end of the day, as the source material kind of frames it, exploring remote viewing is really a journey. It's a journey into the mostly unknown territory of human consciousness.
The potential of our perception.
Exactly. The potential.
So maybe the thought to leave you, the listener, with is this. What if? What if the boundaries of how we perceive things are actually way bigger, far more expansive than we currently think? How might that change how we understand the universe and, our own place within this huge, mysterious existence?
It's definitely something to ponder.
Something to keep thinking about.